The county clerk called me on a Thursday. She has known me for 40 years. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. Frederick, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but your son just filed a petition to have you declared mentally incompetent. He wants control of the farm. There's a hearing in 3 weeks. I thought you deserved a warning. I set down the phone and looked out at 400 acres my father cleared with his own hands. My own boy was trying to have me declared insane, and he had no idea what I had already done to stop him. Welcome back to The Forgotten Parent. Grab your coffee, get comfortable, and remember, the people in these stories had every chance to do right by the ones who raised them. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment, and be sure to subscribe. You're going to want to stay till the end. My name is Frederick Coyle. I am 75 years old. I farmland my family has worked for 3 generations. Out near Hastings, Nebraska, I wear overalls and a seed cap. My hands are cracked like old leather. I drive a tractor older than my son. People see a stubborn old farmer who probably can't work a smartphone. They are right about the smartphone. They are wrong about everything else. This land is my whole life. My grandfather broke this prairie in 1911. My father grew up on it. I was born in the farmhouse I still sleep in. 400 acres of corn and soybeans and pasture. I have worked it for 60 years. I know every low spot that floods. I know every rise that catches the wind. This land and I are the same thing. You cannot separate us. My son tried. Let me tell you how that went. Let me tell you about my grandfather. His name was Josiah. He came here with nothing. Just a wagon and a wife and a dream. The prairie was hard grass and hard weather. He broke the sod with a horse and a plow. He lost his first crop to hail. He lost the second to drought. He did not quit. He built a soddy house first, then a wood house, then the farmhouse I sleep in now. Every board on this place is soaked in Coyle sweat. My father carried it through the Dust Bowl. Imagine that. The sky went black with dirt, the crops blew away, neighbors gave up and left in droves. My father stayed. He tied himself to a rope to reach the barn in the storms. He fed the animals by hand. He held on to this land with his fingernails. He used to tell me, Freddie, land is the only thing they can't make more of. You hold it. You never let it go. I have kept that promise my whole life. I learned to drive a tractor at 8 years old. I could barely reach the pedals. My father put blocks on them so my feet would catch. I have planted 60 springs and harvested 60 falls. I buried my parents in the churchyard down the road. I married my Marian in that same church. We raised our boys in this farmhouse. This is not real estate. This is my family's whole story, written in dirt. And my son Wade wanted to sell the last chapter to a man who would pave it flat. I raised 2 boys with my late wife Marian. My older son Wade is 50. My younger boy Cole is 46. Marian passed 4 years ago, and I have farmed alone since, with hired help at harvest. Cole lives 2 states away. He calls sometimes. He is a good enough son, distant but decent. Wade is the problem. Wade stayed close. And Wade wanted the land. Not to farm it. To sell it. Wade never had the farming heart. Even as a boy, he saw the land as money instead of home. He went into real estate development. He wears pressed shirts and drives a big truck he has never once put mud on. For years he has been telling me the farm is sitting on a fortune. A developer wants to buy it. They want to pave my grandfather's prairie into a subdivision. Wade stood to make a commission that would set him up for life. All he needed was for me to sell. And I would never, ever sell. I should have seen the signs earlier. Wade was always this way. When he was 16, he sold his grandfather's old shotgun without asking. A family heirloom. He wanted concert tickets. When I confronted him, he did not understand my anger. It was just sitting in the closet, Dad. It was worth money. That was Wade. If a thing was not making money, he could not see its worth. A photograph, a memory, a piece of family history, to Wade it was all just clutter with a price tag. Marion worried about him her whole life. On her deathbed she took my hand. "Freddie," she whispered, "watch Wade with the farm. He doesn't understand what it is. Protect it from him if you have to." Those were nearly her last words to me. I did not want to believe her. What father wants to believe his son is a threat? But Marion knew our boy. She saw clearer than me. And 2 weeks after I buried her, I drove to town and put the farm in a trust. I did it because a dying woman told me to. She was right. God, she was right. I told Wade no 100 times, politely at first. Then, firmly, "This land stays a farm," I said. "It goes to whoever will keep it a farm. That was your grandfather's wish. It's mine too." Wade did not like that answer. He started arguing. He said I was being sentimental. He said I was throwing away millions. He said I owed it to the family to sell. I told him the family that mattered was 3 generations in the ground, and they wanted corn, not condos. That is when Wade changed his approach. If he could not convince me to sell, he would take away my right to say no. He started building a case that I was too old and confused to make my own decisions. It was subtle at first. He would visit, and then tell my neighbors I had seemed lost. He would call, and then claim I forgot the conversation. He started a paper trail, quietly, the same way a man poisons a well, drop by drop, until the water turns. I noticed. Of course I noticed. A man does not farm 60 years without learning to read the weather, and Wade was a storm building on the horizon. He would ask me strange questions and write down my answers. He brought a doctor friend to check on me one Sunday. He started mentioning, always with fake concern, how hard it must be to manage everything alone. He was laying the groundwork to declare me senile, and I let him think it was working. The little cruelties piled up. Wade started talking about me in the third person while I stood right there. "Dad gets confused about dates," he told my neighbor, while I was holding the man's hand in greeting. "He shouldn't really be driving," he told the co-op manager, about a man who has driven these roads for 60 years. He would move my things and then ask if I had lost them again. He hid my reading glasses once and watched me search, with a little smile. Testing me. Filming me, I later learned, on his phone. Do you know that feeling? To have your own child treat you like you are already gone? To be discussed like a problem while you stand in the room? I built the life he was standing in. I taught him to ride a bike on that very lane, and now he narrated my decline to strangers, hoping they would nod along. It is a cold, hollow ache. So many of us give our children everything and get measured for a grave in return. I felt every bit of it, and I let him keep digging, because the deeper he dug, the better my harvest would be. There is a particular pain in watching your own child decide you are disposable. To have the boy you taught to walk look at you and see only an obstacle between him and a payday. So many of us pour our whole lives into our children, and then watch them measure us for a nursing home the second we become inconvenient. I felt that on my own front porch, watching Wade take notes on my confusion. And I said nothing. Because a quiet farmer is a patient farmer. And I had planted something Wade did not know about. Then Marion's sister, my sister-in-law, told me the truth of it. Wade had been bragging to her at a family gathering. Once the old man's declared incompetent, he had said, "I get guardianship. Then I control the land, and I sell it out from under him. He'll never even know what happened. He'll be too busy being confused." Then he laughed, and something in me went very cold and very still. That cold, clear feeling. The one that means a decision has finished settling, like sediment in still water. But here is what Wade did not know. 2 years earlier, right after Marion died, I had gone to see a lawyer. Not because I suspected Wade yet. Because I am a careful man, and I wanted to protect the land no matter what happened to me. I had quietly placed the entire farm into an irrevocable trust. a trust with ironclad terms. The land could only ever be used as a farm. It could never be sold to a developer, and control would pass only to an heir who agreed to keep farming it. I had locked the gate 2 years before Wade ever tried the latch. Wade did not know about the trust. He thought if he got guardianship over me, he got the land. He was wrong. Even if he had me declared incompetent, he could not touch the trust. The land was already beyond his reach. He was building an elaborate scheme to steal something I had already given away, to the future, to the farm itself. He just did not know it yet, and I was not going to tell him. Not until the exact right moment. If you've made it this far, do us one quick favor: subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it. But it costs you nothing and means everything to us. Thank you genuinely. Now let me tell you how a stubborn old farmer harvests a scheme. I want to tell you about the night I got the clerk's call. After I hung up, I did not go inside. I walked the fields. It was dusk. The corn was young and green. The sky went orange and then purple over the west quarter. I walked for 2 hours. I thought about my grandfather breaking this sod. I thought about my father tied to a rope in the black blizzards. I thought about Marion's warning, and I made a decision out there in the dirt. Wade would not take this land. Not while I drew breath, not after. Never. I was not angry. Exactly. Anger burns out. This was deeper. This was the same stubborn thing that kept my father here through the Dust Bowl. The land does not belong to us, really. We belong to it. We are just the ones holding it for the next hands. Wade forgot that. He thought it was his to sell. But you cannot sell your own mother. And this land is the mother of every Coyle who ever lived. I would defend her like she was flesh and blood, because in every way that matters, she is. When the clerk called and warned me about the competency petition, I did not panic. I did the opposite. I got to work. First I called my lawyer, a sharp woman named Diane Fowler, who had set up the trust. "Frederick," she said, "he can file all he wants. He can't touch the trust. But let's make sure that hearing ends this once and for all. Let's make him regret ever filing it." I liked the sound of that. Diane and I started planning. The competency hearing would be Wade's own trap, if I said it right. He was going to stand in front of a judge and argue that I was a confused old man. So I decided to give the court overwhelming proof of the opposite. I got a full evaluation from a respected geriatric specialist who found my mind sharp as a tack. I gathered statements from my banker, my neighbors, the co-op manager, all people who dealt with me weekly and knew I was perfectly capable. I built a wall of evidence that Frederick Coyle was nobody's fool. Then I did something Wade never expected. I started recording. When Wade came by with his fake concern and his leading questions, I had a small recorder running in my overall pocket. An old farmer fumbling in his overalls is invisible. Nobody suspects the man in the seed cap. And Wade, arrogant Wade, could not help himself. He talked, he let things slip. He mentioned the developer, he mentioned his commission. He mentioned, more than once, his plan to sell the land the moment he had control. I caught it all. He was reciting his own scheme into my pocket. Diane, my lawyer, taught me how to do it right. "Don't lead him," she said. "Don't trap him. Just let him talk. A guilty man can't stop confessing." She was right. All I had to do was play the confused old father he wanted me to be. "I don't understand all this legal stuff, son," I would say. "Explain it to me again." And Wade, thinking he was working a fool, would explain his whole plan one more time. Slow and clear, right into my pocket. He built the case against himself. I just held the recorder steady. It was hard, playing dumb for my own son. I am not a good actor. But I had 60 years of practice at patience. A farmer waits. He waits for rain. He waits for the soil to warm. He waits for the corn to be ready. You cannot rush a harvest. So I waited. I let Wade think his scheme was ripening nicely. All the while, mine was ripening faster. He was watching the wrong field. I gathered the rest carefully. I got the medical evaluation. I collected letters from everyone in town who knew me. My banker wrote that I managed my accounts perfectly. The co-op manager wrote that I ran my operation better than men half my age. My neighbor of 50 years wrote that I was sharp as a new blade. Brick by brick, I built a wall that no lie could climb. Wade was bringing a story. I was bringing the truth, in writing, from every honest soul in the county. I want to be honest about the hardest night. Wade came for dinner one evening, playing the loving son for the record he was building. And for a moment, across the table, he was just my boy again. He looked tired. He looked, underneath the scheming, a little lost. I almost said, "Son, I know what you're doing, and I'm begging you to stop before you destroy yourself." I almost gave him a way out. But then he asked me, so gently, so falsely, whether I'd been remembering to take my medications, while his eyes checked to see if I bought the act. And I knew he did not want a father. He wanted a diagnosis. That was the moment I stopped hesitating. My son had looked at me with love as a weapon. So I finished preparing my harvest. The trust documents, the medical evaluation, the wall of witnesses, and the recordings, Wade's own voice, laying out his entire plan to defraud his father and pave his great-grandfather's prairie. I had everything. And the beautiful part was this. Wade had scheduled the stage himself. The competency hearing. He was about to stand in a courtroom and hand me the perfect place to end it. The day of the hearing came. The courtroom was small. Wade was there in his best pressed shirt, with his lawyer, looking confident. He had brought his doctor friend to testify about my decline. He had a whole performance ready. He glanced at me with something like pity. He thought he was about to win the farm. He thought the confused old man in overalls did not stand a chance. He had no idea the old man had brought a combine to a hand scythe fight. Wade's lawyer went first. He painted a sad picture. A declining elderly man, alone on a big farm, forgetting things, unable to cope. His doctor friend testified about concerning signs. Wade dabbed at his eyes and spoke about how much he just wanted to protect his father. It was a good performance. If it had been true, it might have worked. But it was built on sand. And I had brought the tide. Then it was my turn. My lawyer Diane rose. First, she called my geriatric specialist, who testified that I was cognitively sharp, fully competent, and entirely capable of managing my affairs. Then she entered the statements from my banker, my neighbors, the co-op. One by one, the pillars of Wade's story cracked. The judge's expression began to shift. He looked at Wade differently now. But Diane was just getting started. She had saved the harvest for last. "Your Honor," Diane said, "the petitioner claims concern for his father's well-being. We'd like the court to hear the petitioner's own words about his true intentions." She looked at me. I nodded. She pressed play. Wade's voice filled the quiet courtroom. "Once the old man's declared incompetent, I get guardianship, then I sell the land to the developer. My commission alone is 7 figures. He'll be too confused to stop me." Then, on the recording, Wade laughed. In the silent courtroom, that laugh was the ugliest sound in the world. Wade's face went white. His lawyer put his head in his hands. The judge leaned forward, and his voice was like winter. "Mr. Coyle," he said to Wade, "you filed a competency petition against your own father as a pretext to seize and sell his property for personal profit?" Wade stammered. There was nothing to say. His own voice had already said it all. The performance was over. The truth stood in the room like a 4th generation of Coyles, tall and unbothered. Wade tried to recover. He always could talk. "Your Honor, that recording is out of context. I was frustrated. I didn't mean, but Diane was ready. There are 11 separate recordings, Your Honor," she said. "Over 3 months. Would you like to hear another?" Wade went silent. 11. He had confessed 11 times to the man he thought was too simple to understand. His own mouth had buried him over and over, right into an old farmer's overall pocket. I watched my son from across that courtroom. I did not feel triumphant. I felt sad. This was still my boy. I remembered teaching him to fish at the pond. I remembered him small and sweet before money got its hooks in him. And now he sat there, exposed, having tried to declare his own father insane for a commission. There is no winning in a moment like that. There is only the grim relief of stopping something terrible before it finished. I had saved the land. But I could not save my son from himself. Only he could do that. Then Diane delivered the final blow, gently, Your Honor. We'd also like the court to know that the entire farm was placed in an irrevocable agricultural trust 2 years ago. It cannot be sold to a developer under any circumstances. It can never be anything but a farm. So the petitioner's entire scheme was not only fraudulent, it was impossible from the start. He tried to steal something his father had already given, permanently, to the land itself. Wade stared at me. A trust? He whispered. You already? 2 years ago? I just looked at my son and said, I told you, Wade, this land stays a farm. The judge dismissed the petition on the spot. He found me fully competent. He had strong words for Wade about the abuse of the court and the cruelty of the scheme. Now here is where I want you to understand the kind of man I am. Wade's crime was greed and deceit. It was ugly. But he did not poison me. He did not raise a hand to me. So I did not press for the harshest punishment the law allowed, though the judge told me I could. I did not want to destroy my son. I wanted to stop him. And I had. But I did not let him off free, either. Some accounting was owed. I had Diane make it clear, on the record, that any further attempt to interfere with me or the trust would bring the full weight of the law and those recordings. I closed the door on his scheme forever, and I locked it. And then I told Wade the thing that mattered most. You are still my son, I said, but you are not welcome on this land until you understand what it is. It is not money. It is your great-grandfather's back. It is your grandmother's garden. It is home. When you can see that, come back. Until then, stay in your city. Wade left the courthouse without a word. For a year we did not speak. I farmed my land in peace. The trust held, exactly as I built it. My grandfather's prairie stayed prairie. And slowly, I heard, Wade began to change. Losing so badly, so publicly, forced him to look at himself. His marriage had been strained by his greed. His own children barely knew him. He had chased money his whole life and ended up alone. The farm he tried to steal had, in a strange way, taught him the lesson that saved him. My other son, Cole, came home when he heard what happened. He drove 11 hours straight when his aunt told him about the hearing. He walked into my kitchen with fire in his eyes. Dad, I'm so sorry, he said. I should have been here. I left you alone out here with him. I told him he had nothing to be sorry for. But something had shifted in Cole. Watching his brother try to steal our father's life woke something up in him. He remembered who he was. He remembered where he came from. Cole stayed a week, then 2. He kept finding reasons not to leave. He fixed the fence in the south pasture. He helped me with the planting. He walked the fields at dawn like he did as a boy. One evening he stood in the field at sunset and said, Dad, I think I want to come home. I want to learn to farm it. I want to keep it going. I nearly fell over. The trust needed an heir who would keep it a farm. And here he was, standing in the corn, volunteering. Marion's protection had reached all the way into the future and pulled our real heir home. I did not push him. A man has to choose the land freely, or it will crush him. So I just said, the door's always open, son, and so is the field. He went home, settled his affairs, and came back for good 3 months later. He sold his apartment in the city. He moved into the old bunkhouse. He is a farmer now, a slow, green, eager farmer. But the heart is there, and the heart is the only thing that matters. You can teach a man to plant. You cannot teach him to love the dirt. Cole already did. These days, Cole is learning the land. He is slow at it, like I was once, but he has the heart, and the heart is the only part you cannot teach. I show him the low spots that flood and the rises that catch the wind. I am teaching him everything my father taught me. The farm will pass to him through the trust, safe forever. A farm for another generation. Wade tried to end our family's story on this land. Instead, he accidentally wrote its next chapter. Cole came home because Wade forced the question of who we really are. Wade and I are talking again now, carefully. He came to the farm last month for the first time in over a year. He stood in the field a long while. Quiet, Dad. He finally said, "I don't know what happened to me. I looked at all this and only saw dollars. I'm sorry." I put my old cracked hand on his shoulder. "The land forgives," I told him. "It's the most forgiving thing there is. You plant, you fail, you plant again. Come learn to plant, son, it's not too late." He is coming around on Sundays now, not to take the land, just to stand on it. That is a start. I put Marion's picture on the mantel where I can see it while I eat. I talk to her most nights. I told her everything. I told her how Wade tried it, just like she warned. I told her how the trust she made me build saved us. I told her Cole came home. I like to think she smiled that quiet smile of hers. "I told you, Freddie," she would have said. "I told you to protect it, and I told you Cole had the heart all along." She was right about all of it. She usually was. The developer gave up, by the way. When they learned about the trust, they walked away. My grandfather's prairie will never be a subdivision. It will grow corn for another 100 years, God willing. Cole's children will run through these fields someday. They will learn to drive the tractor with blocks on the pedals. The Coyle story will keep being written in this dirt, chapter after chapter. Exactly as Josiah dreamed when he broke the first sod in 1911. I still wear my overalls and my seed cap. I still drive the tractor older than my son. People still think I am just a stubborn old farmer who can't work a smartphone. They are right about the smartphone. But a man does not survive 60 years on the land by being a fool. You survive by planning for every storm, including the ones that come from inside your own house. I planted a trust 2 years before I needed it. That is not luck. That is farming. You always plan for the season you cannot see. If you like this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being part of this family. And remember this: if someone starts telling the world you are confused, if they start building a case that you cannot care for yourself, pay very close attention. Sometimes the person calling you crazy is simply trying to take what is yours. Protect your affairs while your mind is sharp. Lock the gate before the wolf ever finds the latch.